What is up, guys? Teddy Cornwall here. Welcome to the Underdog Talk, the world's most underrated podcast on earth. And as they say, there is something about the underdog. Today, I'm joined by the mindset coach, Jeff Volpis. How are we doing today, sir? How's everything going?
Good. I'm doing great, man. How about you, Teddy? How's it going?
Yeah, it's been a hot, few days here in Maryland, and getting ready for Fourth of July. So it's gonna be a good weekend, 4 day week, and then we're in the weekend. So
Yeah.
hopefully it's a fast one. Hopefully it's a fast one. But yeah, Jeff, um, I've been following your content for a while. Obviously, the mindset is a very important thing in terms of your content, and love what you do. Now, before we kind of get into this podcast, would you mind, introducing yourself? What's your background? How'd you get where you are? What is your story?
Okay, yeah, sure. Hey, everybody, I'm Jeff Opus. I'm a mindset coach. And how I got into personal development is a very interesting story. And we can dive into it, but just a very brief overlay is that I really feel like I was about 35 years old, and I really felt that I was just going nowhere in life. And I started to really research and find out how to get better. And I stumbled upon Tony Robbins. I had actually never heard of him. And so I started working with his content and learning and really doing a lot of personal development. And then I actually got fully into personal development when I was injured. I was working at a plant and got electrocuted.
Well,
And I was sitting at home and I came across a Tim Grover video who trained Michael Jordan, and Kobe and Dwayne Wade, and he was talking about really diving deep into who you are and really like unleashing the true you. And I was sitting there watching, and I literally felt like he made the video for me. And it was speaking to all my frustration of everything I had put up, with in my life until about 35 years old. And I would see these sparks of greatness, but I was like, there's got to be more. I have to have more potential. There has to be more opportunity. There's got to be more to life than this. Not in a depressing way, but just like in athletics, there has to be another level, you know? And I got into it, and I took his class. It changed my life. I reached out to him, and actually he's my mentor and a friend of mine, and I just really went full scale in the personal development. And I was talking to Grover and told him a lot of my story, and he was like, you know you need to do this. And when I went to go do it and everything, I was in an environment that wasn't the best for me. So I was like, hey, what do I have right now? I got to take what I have right now and start building. And I had a place to stay at the time and stuff, but it fell through and I didn't. But I was like, I'm not going to go back on my dreams. And that's actually how I ended up in the car building my business for 2 years at a rest area. And I would just grind every day. I said, I'm not going anywhere until I get out of the car. I'm going to, trust God, pray. I'm going to become the best mindset coach I can every day, whether I have clients or not, because the day will come that I will have lots and lots of clients, and I'm going to be ready for my opportunity. So I would just keep grinding, and I put on seminars and wrote ebooks, and it was just constant, like just scratching and building and getting better and better and better. And that's pretty much the main part of my journey.
Gotcha. And obviously, I'm just going to answer or ask the question right off the bat. This is the Underdog Talk podcast. What was your underdog moment in this journey, kind of where everything was stacked against you, and you overcame and conquered?
There were so many moments, and that's such a great question. There were so many moments, especially like I don't know how many people have ever lived in their car or their car broke down or they're just sitting in the car for 5 minutes. But in Florida, if it's 90 degrees outside, it's about 120 in your car. And I had these days multiple times to where I would go back to the rest area and I would pray and trust God. And like as the sweat was dripping down my head, as I'm sticking to my seat, I'm watching people in the cars next to me go home with families. And there were days that I didn't eat and days that I wanted to give up. And I was like, this is what's gonna build me. And there were so many days where I would go back there and I was like, it's hard. You know, so many of my friends that knew me, they were like, Jeff, just go do something else, man, quit. It would have happened by now. But I was like, I'm doing this to follow the calling that God gave me to help people with mindset. And I want to lead the example of there's going to be somebody that comes behind me that isn't facing a mountain this high. And they're going to say, if Jeff did it in the car and did all that, I can do it. So I really had multiple moments like that to answer your question, but I just went to another zone and was like, I refuse to quit.
Now, being in that car, being in that heat, being in an environment that's uncomfortable, um, what did you learn about yourself, kind of in those that span of living in a car? I'm sure, um, sure that's not easy. I mean, I'm not even understanding on how extreme that is, the extent of it. But what did you learn about yourself as a human being?
I learned that the most I think I learned is that when everything was stripped away, and it was just me and God, and it really helped me lean on my faith and my trust in God. But it showed me who I was as a person because so many times, like especially with clients that I help, or so many people that I see, or so many people that I talk to, they don't realize they're here. They're right here when it comes to their goals. So, what that made me see was, right here, being this close to accomplishing your goal, it's a very frustrating place. So, it's so easy to quit in that moments of frustration. And living in the car, and hopefully people watching this, what they can gather is, hey, I didn't live in a car. Right, but you have been at the doorstep of accomplishing your goals, and you have had the opinions of others tell you to quit. You have had frustration even if you put in work and didn't get the results. You have had times where you felt like the deck was stacked against you, and it was much easier to walk away than it was to stand and continue moving forward. So it really taught me I have options. Just because I'm frustrated, just because things aren't working out, just because it sucks, because it's hard, just because it's awful, just because nobody believes in me, I still have the option to move forward. And I think in society right now, so many people miss that it's ultimately their choice whether they accomplish their goals or not. And, like you said, you can't imagine what it's like living in a car. It's awful. It's so hot at night, it's so hot during the day. I had to sleep with my windows up because the mosquitoes would eat you alive in Florida. So it's like I literally would be fighting for my breath sometimes, and it was just this time of like this pressure on the back of my neck, like quit, 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 quit. But I was like, there's things that I did to take control. Like number one, I was like, I'm only going to sleep 5 hours. And then I'm going to get up and I'm going to work and I'm going to prospect and I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to go introduce myself to people. So it's like that's the first thing I kind of did with the car was a day's 24 hours. And I'm like, I'm not going to sit here for 24 hours crying. I'm not going to hold up no sign saying, help me out. I'm struggling because nobody owes me anything. It's my dream. So I would do these things to take control and I would just focus my mind on the next moment. Because if I thought about it's 5 a.m. and I woke up now, what am I going to feel like at 7 p.m.? That kind of mental weight can crush you. So I would take it moment by moment by moment.
And I think that 100% I agree. And I see oftentimes the most successful people that come from, um, sometimes rock bottom are the ones who grind. Simple as that. Each person has their own story, and each person puts in their own work. But the people that come from the rock bottom and make it are the people who don't give up. The people who really are relentless, and who sleep 3 hours and work 21 hours.
Yeah.
So those are the people that kind of, um, rise to the top with that work ethic. Now, what do you see in today's society that kind of makes people have a weak mindset? What is that?
That's another great question. And there's so many layers to that. But I think the biggest one that I always run into that I help people with is the opinions that people gave you or what people said to you. And unfortunately, that can be family, that can be friends. I've heard it all from everybody. But an opinion is just that. It's not it's not life or death. It doesn't say yes or no to your dreams. It's like I said in a video, it's like whether they stand up and throw you a parade or boo you out of the building, the work still lies in front of you. You still have a choice. And I think that so many people cave to society's pressure of, well, I don't want to, you know, outgrow the group and people I grew up with, or I don't want to go after this dream and follow my face. Do you know how many people laughed at me when I was living in the car? Do you know how many people told me I was an idiot? I was stupid. I was a dreamer. It's never going to happen. They called me dumb. They were like, this is what you get, and on and on and on. There was not a lot of support, but I knew that one day they were going to call me the greatest and I wouldn't quit. And one day they were going to call me to be their coach. And one day they were going to call me to be their speaker. And I think that if people can focus on be very, very in tune with their dream and their vision and exactly what they want and give their mind a clear target, when that societal press when the society's pressure comes from your friends, from your family telling you all the reasons that you can't do it, you can kindly say to them, hey, thank you for your opinion, but it's not needed. And you can keep moving. And I think that people take the opinions as the final answer, and that's such a shame, and they give up on their dreams, and there's so many talented people living at low level because of other people's opinions controlling them.
No, I think that's a great point. And, with anything, people are going to criticize and express their opinions. Obviously, I've got a lot of love and from this podcast, and we've done some great things. Just, a lot will come of this podcast, but, a lot of family and friends have definitely, they said it won't go anywhere. And I say, look at our guest list, but, to me, I don't take it personally, but I do see, where people take that personally, and it does affect that dream, where it does affect kind of that drive, like you mentioned, Jeff. I totally agree. Do you think people in today's society have a how do I say this? Do you think people in today's society have a worse mindset than people back in the 90s?
Yeah, that's a great point. And like I was born in 83. So, I came through tough times with family members. Anybody that went through the 80s, their family members had drug problems. It
Mhm.
was poverty. It was, grandparents raising people, aunts raising people, uncles raising people. So it was a very much of nobody cares about your crying. We're all dealing with it. And I think now, unfortunately, and this is not knocking anybody, but there's a lot more almost entitlement, like life is supposed to be easy. Life is like, don't get my Starbucks order wrong in the drive thru, it's going to crush my whole day. And I'm like, if people would stop being so affected by outside elements and these little, like the Bible talks about, these little pebbles in your shoe, and they would stay focused on their dream and they would push a little bit further every day, their mindset can become stronger. I mean, I'm 3 generations from them coming over here from Italy. That boat ride wasn't easy. It wasn't Carnival Cruise, but they sacrificed everything to turn around and hand it over to the next generation to make it easier. And I feel that even if you don't have kids, you can make tomorrow easier for you by being a little bit tougher today and just stack it, stack it, stack it. And like you said, why it's so much weaker today. I think too that people search for what they want. They search for what they want. When they want to quit, they'll go on social media and they'll follow the people that are just like, just be happy with what you have. Just be grateful for this. And it's almost like they're just looking at a lower level to feel better to stay stuck. And back in the day, we didn't have that option. And I think there's a lot of people out there, like with you with the podcast. I told you I love your show. I respect your guest list. I see you grinding. You're doing amazing. You're making an impact. You're believing in yourself. There's 100 people that want to do a podcast. The first time they can't hook the equipment up, they're giving up. The second time is their friends say they can't make it happen. The third time, a guest don't answer them, and the fourth time they say, "Well, if it was meant to happen, it would have happened by now." Do you know how many no's you probably had to go through to
Yep.
get guests? Do you know how much equipment you had to invest in? Do you know how much time putting podcasts together? When I started speaking and everything, I was stuttering. I couldn't. I was I would rather jump off a cliff than public speak. So it's like you got to push yourself. And I think that's what's wrong with society. Nobody pushes themselves. At the first sign of discomfort, oh, it shouldn't be this hard. It shouldn't be this hard. That's why the top of the mountain is this big and the bottom is this big, because it's easy to stand at the bottom, but it's hard to get to the top. And I think so many people miss, it's not just confetti and beautiful vision boards. It's work, it's grinding, it's faith, and it's day after day after day.
100%. And a few things, to add on to that. I appreciate, I do genuinely believe in my hearts of hearts, this is the most underrated podcast on earth with the guest list we do get on this podcast weekly. I will say thank you for the production compliment. Production's never been our thing. I'm a regular guy. I never care about the production. It's all about the guests. That's always what this podcast has been about. So we don't spend too much money on that, but the time, all joking aside, but the time and effort, I agree on that. And back to, kind of what we are talking about in terms of the entitlement. I'm sure myself has been guilty of it as well. I'm not sure, I'm not saying sure at all. I have been guilty of it. I think it's an unfortunate mindset in today's society, where you made a great point where if something doesn't go your way, it's you give up, or you do that cry for help and you try and get that attention. I agree, and I think that mindset is a weak mindset. And I always think, if you have a goal, if you have a dream, um, you get a million no's. Who cares? Do your thing that you love. And I agree onto that to you, where you were starting out your journey as a coach, and it wasn't easy. It was not easy. I mean, shoot, it was not easy for you at all. You were in a car. You were grinding. You were really, really giving it your 110%, Jeff. And I think that is something that people should work on. I think another thing that comes to it is I don't know why I thought of this, but gratitude. I think gratitude is a great thing for mindset in general. And the way I was bringing that in, and it ties into entitlement. Be happy with what you have, because um, you probably are so blessed compared to someone else out there. So in terms of that entitlement, just be happy with what you have. Um, just be gracious for whatever you have, and work for what you want. 100% agree on that. Now let me ask you this, Jeff. What has been the biggest thing you've kind of learned about people as a mindset coach? What is the one thing where you've seen it in some of your clients, where it's that kind of that maybe that stubborn mindset, maybe it's that entitlement mindset? What is that one common mindset where you see a lot of people having that, and obviously you work with them, but what is that one kind of um, main one?
I think it would be shock,
Hmm.
because when I work with them, the biggest thing I tell them is, look, within the first 5 to 10 minutes, like, I'm coming in like HGTV, we're busting all the
Yeah,
walls down, we're demoing all the negative mindset, everything your mom, dad, uncle, third grade teacher said, we're busting it all.
yeah,
So it's like that aha moment. Oh, I could have been like this for like 35 years. It could have been this. So it's the shock. But then what it is it's the mindset of, hold on, because then they think they're fixed when everything's demoed. And that's what I think the problem is with a lot of these videos, and everybody trying to cure themselves with YouTube, and trying to guide themselves when they don't know where they're going. There's a difference between the demo, meaning knock down all the stuff that's been holding you back. Now you have to rebuild it. Because if you don't put new supplies in, you're going to take what you just knocked down and rebuild that. Meaning, if you let your mom affect you from what she said when you were a kid, and you knocked it down and you didn't replace it with a new mindset, you know, a new way of thinking, you're going to pick that up and slowly start to listen to maybe your mom, your friend, etc. So really it was the shock mindset of like, wait a minute, I do have more in me. I can be more in life. And I think that it's that shock, but then what I have to teach them the most is, hold on, now we have to go rebuild. So really it's, again, it's like the cold water to the face of like, well, I've been told this and I've been told this, and it's almost like when we went to the fair and we're spinning around on the merry-go-round, stop. Let me show you what you can be.
yeah.
So really when they invest in themselves and take the time, it's the whole shock factor of like, I knew this was somewhere inside of me. I felt like this from a kid. Do you know how many people I work with, like 40, 50, 60, and they say, I've always wanted this from a kid. And they let 55, 45, 40 years slip by.
And I was actually going to bring that up, and I'm glad you brought that up. That is an interesting, you know, in terms of how your perspective can change. And then for me, I feel like I'd be looking back and kind of almost be upset with myself, Jeff. And why did I have that mindset? Why did I waste my time with that mindset? But I guess you got to look at it. Hey, the past is the past. Can't change that mindset. Now we're on to a new mindset, and it's all positive from here. So I guess also to bring that to a home, everything happens for a reason. You might have been in that mindset due to circumstances. You might have been in that mindset due to something else, but now you're in a new mindset and it changes. I think that was that shock is definitely an interesting attribute to the mindset. I think that's a great, yeah, I truly agree on that. Now, what have you learned about yourself? Obviously, kind of helping people with their mindset. Has this strengthened your mindset, Jeff?
Definitely, because it's constant sharpening.
Mm,
A lot of people, because I always tell people when I work with them, everything stays between us. You're not going to shock me with anything. The more raw you get, the better this is going to go for both of us.
mm,
So I'll be like, oh, okay, people struggle with anger too. People struggle with childhood trauma too. People struggle with frustration. Like a big weakness that I have, how you talked about with gratitude, is it's this fine line of when you're a high achiever and when you push yourself. Like I have to take my foot out of my rear end because every day I'm moving forward. And what I do is, like, if I don't hit the very top of the mountain, sometimes I'm like, you suck today. It was awful. So it's
mm.
almost like my my will for the high achievement and the goals I want to go to the top of the mountain. It's like when I have that mindset, I pull all the dirt down on me and I'm like, Jeff, look what you did today and look what you
Yeah,
can take into tomorrow. So a lot of people, it's not just like that they're lazy or they're this and that. It's they let their emotions control them. Then they let opinions control them from people around them. Then they just let the frustration stop them. And it's this constant cycle.
yeah,
So it's and I'll share with my clients, like especially the high achievers, the bodybuilders, the ones that almost got, you know what I'm saying, a better placement or just got an injury on 10 weeks out, like all this stuff. And I would tell them, I'm saying, look, it's not over. You put in a lot of work. This is just a speed bump, So it's kind of like saying like it helps me because it's not just like I work with people that are like, oh, I need to do better in my life. No, I work with some people that are beating doors down, climbing mountains that I'm like, I get it. I relate to your frustration when you want the top so bad and you're right there and you just slip.
yeah.
So, yeah, definitely that I see a lot of myself in my clients, and I think that's why it's so easy to be real with them because I've been through so much in my life, and not throwing shade on anybody in my past or whatever, but I share it with them in an uplifting way, and I share with them like, hey, you're not the only one that's been through that, and I understand how you feel like that, and this is what we can do. So definitely it's sometimes it's crazy what journey two people have been on, but until somebody opens their mouth, nobody knows.
Yeah, 100%. Everyone has their own journey. I'm going to be 100% vulnerable. Obviously, I want to ask your opinion about this. Obviously, I truly do believe this is the most underrated podcast on earth. And sometimes it gets to my head. How do I kind of maintain a level set mindset on that? Obviously, the work is nine to five. Well, I shouldn't say 9 to 5. It's 24/7 on this podcast, obviously. Um, but how can I? And I think that's another thing where I talked about the gratitude and where I should be, happy from where we came from. What is a good mindset in terms of? I guess I'll go for achieving success. What does a good mindset look like?
Good mindset looks like number one, clarity.
Mm,
Clarity so you can define the goals, clarity so you can track it, and clarity so you can review the game film at the end of the day. Like with you, what gets, if you don't mind sharing, and if you do,
yeah,
that's fine. What gets to you about it?
yeah.
Like what do you really like? Because I can tell you have that fire. I see that fire in you. When when you feel that, like, you know, it's so underrated, and you know the guest list that you have, and you know the work you put in, what really gets to you like 3 o'clock in the morning when you're laying on your pillow and you roll over like this? Like, what are you really saying to yourself right then?
To be perfectly honest, I tell everyone and my phrase is it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when this podcast blows up. So I believe in it wholeheartedly. But what gets to me is sometimes when the view count's low and um, you know some other podcasts are doing way better when I don't think they're as good as ours. Not that they're bad. I just think you know what we do is extraordinary. But yeah, sometimes that gets to me. To be perfectly honest with you, that mindset keeping strong. That I can't give up. It's the best thing to ever happen to me, and there's no backing down now, and it's full steam ahead. So I guess the one thing I remember for my mindset that strengthens me is simple little phrase: Rome was not built overnight. A lot of very successful people and a lot of very successful companies. Um, and you can attest, obviously, it takes a while to get where you want to be. 100%. That's just the name of the game. So I think I'm still learning, still finding myself. But to answer your question, what gets to me is, um, when I see these podcasts doing well, um, we're here with the best guests in the world, and sometimes we're not doing as good as them.
Your podcast is the best podcast before it's known.
Hmm.
And you putting in the work and you getting the guest and you having the receipts and you knowing it is what's making you the best podcast.
Yeah.
You're underrated because of an algorithm. And we can spend 3 hours on
Mhm.
that garbage and what all that high school
Yeah.
king and queen junk is.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, what you're doing right now is you're building a body of work.
Hmm.
So when the right person sees you, you're going to have so much on your resume that
Yeah.
you're just going to hit them so hard and run them over with your receipts. But then with your mindset and that fire of every night at 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the morning, when you would go on and you would see the people that you know should not be ahead of you, you're building like this emotional bank account of fire, and
Hmm.
you are ready to unleash it when your opportunity comes. So what you're doing right now is you're staying razor sharp for your opportunity. You're building people and an audience that will share your stuff. It takes the one person,
Yeah.
one right person to share your stuff and share it. But what they're going to see is, and this is what society doesn't get, when they see your podcast, when they see your receipts, when they see your body of work, they'll know that you didn't do it for the money. They'll know
Hmm.
that you were real about it.
Yeah.
That's what Steve Jobs was. That's what The Rock was. That's what all the famous people were. Look at was it J.K. Rowling's that did Harry Potter? All of
Yep.
them.
Yep.
They didn't write because somebody gave them a paycheck and an
Yeah.
apartment in this. They kept writing and kept writing. I didn't coach
True.
because somebody paid me. And
Hmm.
and then, you know what I'm saying? I was like, I'll do it. For 4 years, I didn't make a dollar.
Wow.
4 years, I didn't make a dollar. That didn't stop me from coaching. So now when I coach people, they're like, oh, I can't believe you only charge this much and you give so much and you could charge some more. I'm like, it's okay. Same thing with you. It's like, oh, I can't believe you did the podcast. You had all those guests and nobody's seen it, blah, blah, blah. You're getting ready for a level. And I always tell my friends this spiritually, God is preparing you for a level that you will never come down from and
Yeah.
go higher, because so many people that get the spotlight and don't have substance fall hard and they'll
Hmm.
never get back to that level. You're getting trained to keep your throne and to rise higher and higher and higher. But you have to do that with doing it like you're doing, exactly like you're doing. You're getting the receipts, you're stacking the guest, you're screaming your own name from the rooftop. We are the most underrated podcast. We will be the best. We know we're better than everybody else, but you're not saying it in a hating way. You're saying it in a motivated, watch me, let me get the ball and I'll show you way. So you're sharpening your skills, you're giving your audience so much receipts, and you're getting better and better and better and better. And you will be the
Yeah.
top rated podcast and people will see it, but you got to know it up here before you put it out there. And that's what you're doing.
All right, Jeff, I'm hiring you because that was a really damn good speech, and you are really good at your job.
I'm
That was
s-
very motivational, and I mean, wow, you got me. I was listening to every word on that, and I 100% agree with every word that you said on that. And while I remember this, something I want to hear your opinion on this. Something I always tell my buddies, I'm like, they always ask me who the best athletes are, and I always say there's Tom Brady and Michael Jordan. They're the best because of their mindset.
mhm.
Why are those two? And I mean, Michael Jordan's obviously physically talented, no doubt about that. There's no ifs in there. But Tom's not as physically talented as MJ, but his mentality is just as good as MJ. Why are Tom Brady and Michael Jordan so mentally strong?
Because they've invested in themselves. They want it that much more than others, and quitting is not an option. It's
Yeah.
not. If you look, go look at the flu game, and I learned so much of this from Grover. Go look at the flu game. Like there's if you go look at the flu game, Jordan played I think all with like 41 minutes. There's the end of the game where he missed the three. He got the rebound. There's the end of the game where I think he like missed the free throw. Everybody else is on the floor that does not have the flu. If you slowly watch the tape, it's like everybody's standing still and Jordan went right there. And that proof, if I could show somebody one play of Jordan's career, it wouldn't be the slam dunk contest against Dominique in 88 where he jumped from the free throw line and this. It wouldn't be the six championships. It would be literally could barely stand up at the end of the game when he could have checked it in and everybody said you played everything and he went for that ball and he won the game when everybody else was thinking he was doing because he knew losing is not an option. Brady, and I'm a Dolphin fan, so let me tell you the agony that Brady put me through. Let me tell you, but so much respect for him and Belichick and the Patriots. And so, what it is also with Brady, with Jordan, with all these other athletes, it's a culture, it's a mindset, it's a way of life. It's not a hashtag, it's not a social media post, it's not a Transformation Tuesday motivation day. It's every second of the day. They want it, they challenge themselves, and they refuse to lose. And it doesn't mean they win every game. Losing is quitting. Losing is shrinking back out of fear. Losing is not doing your ultimate best that you know you can do. At the end of the day, when you look in the mirror and nobody's around, there's no selfies, there's no Instagram lives, there's no TikToks, and you say, I know today I did the absolute best I can, you won. Now take that and stack it tomorrow, and stack it tomorrow, and stack it tomorrow. And that's how you win at life. That's how you win at sports. And that's how you win in you versus you. You have to get clear. You have to know that there is no competition but you. It's you versus you. But so many people love saying that, but they don't know how to do it. You versus you is being honest with yourself. You versus you is staying focused with yourself. You versus you is keeping negative people away from you. And you versus you is showing up every day. It's not easy. It's not hard. I'm not going to quit. If I fall, I'm going to rest, get back up, and keep going. And that's what makes them the greatest.
So if you want to be like Michael Jordan and Tom Brady, you'll listen to what Jeff said on that because I think that's how you become the goat. But no, I agree on every word you said again. And that you versus you is kind of hard, though. I will say that, especially for me, I'm a competitive person. Um, why is you versus you so important? Kind of blocking out that outside noise, um, like you mentioned earlier, Jeff. Not listening to the opinions of others. Why is you versus you so important in terms of being successful?
It shows you who you are. And when you know who you are, you know what you have. You walk around with you 24/7. Not your best friend, not your mom, not your college professor, not your first boss at the outlet mall. You walk around with you. So at the end of the day, it's just like a credit card receipt. You sign it. So at the end of the day, it's like, okay, I gave everything. Bam. I'm responsible for the day. So you versus you shows you who you are. It shows you if you want it or not. There's no lying to you. You can lie to your friends, you can lie to social media, you can lie to your next door neighbor. You can't lie to you because you were with you. So it's like your own YouTube channel up here is watching you 24/7 like the Truman Show, and it's like I know I did this or I didn't. Like I tell my friends and my clients, the people I coach, they're like, "Well, how do you do this and that?" It's like, "Look, If you're in sales and you're like, I'm going to get up and make 15 calls today, if you made 12, you did not win the day. You said you were going to make 15. And the thing about it, it's not, well, I only didn't make 3 calls. You said you're going to make 15. So did you make 15 or did you not? And like with you, you have to keep going when people say stuff. You have to keep going when the algorithm disrespects you. You have
Yep.
to keep going when you spend all the time in the editing and the chopping down and getting the guest and organizing the show and putting it out there on Instagram, YouTube, all this. I seen it. I saw your views. I'm like, this dude should be in the millions. What's going on? I was watching all of it. I watched it with Sal. I watched it with Ricky. I watch all of them. I watch all your stuff.
Yep.
You're so good at and like I told you, you're so good at talking to people. Like, where were you at on your journey? Why, when you felt underrated, what did you do? What was the life change? What do and people don't do that anymore. People want the fancy suit, and it's almost like their whole entire life is in hair and makeup, and they think that their life is like a Snapchat filter, and it's not.
Yep.
And that's what I love about your show. It's raw, it's real, and it's like, look, you're here, you were there. What happened here?
Yeah.
And other people don't do that. And I think that society is going to wake up, and it's like you're that blue chip stock. It's like you're right here on the ground floor, and you're about to shoot up, and when everybody sees it, they're going to see it and they're going to know, but you already knew. That's what I tell my friends, like, oh, are you surprised that you sit at this table and you know that person, you know this, and you talk to this person? I said, I talked to Jesus Christ first. He told me I could do it. I knew I was going to do it. So it's a surprise to all of you, not to me. I'm thankful. I'm humble. I'm full of gratitude. But when it's you versus you and you know who you are and it's not a surprise to you, you don't get stuck at level 4 when you're supposed to be on level 20. Because so many people are like, well, I didn't think I could do this. Oh my gosh. And they spend 2 years celebrating when they should have been 8 levels higher. So it's I think that you versus you ultimately is clarity. And when you have clarity, I think that can really build mental peace.
It's about you versus the man in the mirror. I think Tony Romo, my favorite quarterback and my dream guest on this podcast, said that once. Now, something that I thought about is sometimes how do you work around the mindset of being scared of success? I think that's a very underrated um, mindset. I think a lot of people, I'm not going to say all, but there's people, probably myself included, are scared of success, of scared of um, making it. Whether that be we like feeling, um, you know, uh, underrated. We like kind of grinding. What happens when you actually make it? How do you keep a positive mindset? I guess when you actually do become quote unquote successful or do make your dreams a reality and whatever that may entail.
So I'll share from my experience.
Yeah.
I was raised by grandparents, and we struggled. My grandpa did great. They weren't planning on supporting me, so it was a lot of tight budgets. It was a lot of flea markets. It was a lot of yard sales, and I'm proud of that. And if I end up 1% of what my grandpa was, I'll be one of the greatest men on earth. That's how great he is, and that's how much I appreciate him. But when you come from, I dropped out in 10th grade because I had 2 jobs. I was on free lunch from kindergarten to the day I dropped out of high school. That messes with your mind. I was
Yep.
on food stamps a lot in my 20s. We didn't have a lot of money as a family. So that instilled in me the grind, 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 go, go, go. Nobody's going to outwork me. Nobody's going to take my lunch. That's great. That's a gift. The flip side of the coin is you're always waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Hmm.
I'm here, but am I going to end up back here? If I end up back here, I know how to survive. I know how to do this. Yeah.
Yep.
Say that one time and stop focusing on that. Focus on how to stay here and keep going. So I think the biggest thing with the fear of success, especially if you came from poverty, especially if you overcame stuff, the thing that got you there can be the thing that kicks you back down if you
Hmm.
don't check your mindset. So
Yeah.
you have to say like, okay, my grinding and my hunger got me here. Now I
Yeah.
belong here. And that same grind and hunger can take me so much higher, and I can take that with me in a positive way, not
Yep.
not a crazy run everybody over way. I could take it in a positive way and keep going. I don't have to always be ready to grind because I'm going to fall down 10 levels. I think it's just that mindset of you have to break it and you have to say, I belong here because
Hmm.
I put in the work.
Yeah.
I trusted God to get me here. I put in the work every day, and every day I'm getting better. I read this in Belichick's book, The Art of Winning, today. He
Hmm.
said improvement is not a one time thing, it's a constant thing.
Yeah.
And I think so many people forget that. They're like, well, I got good grades this semester. I got a promotion. That was yesterday. What are you doing today? And
Yeah.
I think that if you'll keep pushing yourself and keep improving yourself, again, it's back to the receipt. You're like, I paid for this. I
Hmm.
belong here.
Yeah.
I belong at this level. I earned it. You earned saying that I want to be the best podcast. You didn't just sit here playing video games and not record one episode. No, I'm just going to be the best podcast one day, bro. How? Oh, I'm
Yeah.
getting guests. I'm doing this. So you put in the work. So you say, I'm at this level. I'm going to stay at this level. I'm going to do what got me to the dance and keep going. And I think so many people don't have clarity. They get here and they're like, "Oh, this is great." But when the champagne stops popping, when the confetti falls, they shrink back and they're like, "I don't belong in this room. I don't belong at this level." They
Hmm.
go back here, they go back to their friends, and they look at photos and talk about the good old days, and they blame
Hmm.
the economy, the president, everything else. Take control, and keep improving every day. And you will say, I belong at this level because I put in the work, and this is where I belong. And just keep repeating that over and over. You have to break that mindset, and I do it with work. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that made 100%. Now, let me ask this: how important? And I've always wondered this. To me, I've tried to do them. They've never been very effective to me. But how important are words of affirmation in mindset? Obviously, you always hear about it, and I'm sure maybe I don't necessarily voice them like I am whatever. I definitely have them on my mind. But how important are affirmations in terms of achieving success and um, finding your purpose essentially.
How do you do the affirmations?
Me personally,
And there's no right or wrong way. This is
yeah,
this
yeah,
is going to help a
100%.
lot of people. Yeah, it's going to help a lot of people. How do you do them?
I honestly think them in my head. I try to do the, uh, I am. I'm just going to say example. I am courageous or something, something like that. I
Yeah.
try to voice it. It doesn't. To me, it doesn't. I don't feel the power of it. I feel the power when I think it. Um, and that's how I do my affirmations. I've tried to write it down, never really stuck with me. Um, Obviously, this doesn't work for me necessarily. Might work.
I,
Everyone has different things, like you mentioned, Jeff, which was great. For me, I guess, like I said, it's my inner voice. If that makes sense, my inner voice is always talking. Like for example, for the podcast, this is the most underrated podcast. We will make it to where we will inspire people, and I'm thinking that.
did you see your
So I
face?
am. Hmm.
Did you see your face? Did you see your body language?
Yeah.
You see it? You
Yeah.
said we're gonna be the number one. But when I asked you before, how you said
Yeah.
I'm gonna be, because you match the affirmation with the
Yeah.
work.
That's true.
That's why you felt like that about the podcast. So it's not that affirmations don't work for you, and it's not that affirmations don't work, but you got to put the work with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
I believe it was Jim Rohn that said affirmations without work is delusion.
Hmm.
Because if I tell people this all the time. I have friends who are like, I'm gonna look like the Rock. I'm gonna look like the Rock. I'm like, you're sitting on the couch eating
Yeah.
freaking Doritos and drinking soda. You're gonna be
Yeah.
stuck like a rock because you're not putting in any work. You know. But if you're like, I'm gonna be the best podcast. Okay, great. Okay, you put that out there. Then what do you do after that? See, so many people are like, I'm going to be a millionaire. Then they don't read any financial books.
Hmm.
They don't study the wealth recipe from Richest Man in Babylon, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, whatever. And they don't save their money. They don't invest their money. And like, oh, I'm going to be rich, but I'm going to go to the mall and buy a purse that I can't afford the first credit card payment on. Oh, and
Yeah.
that's just, I'm going to be rich. I just got to keep saying I'm going to be rich. You're going to be rich, rich in debt
Yeah.
because you're doing things wrong. But for you to say, we're going to be the number one podcast, this is the number one podcast. It's the most underrated podcast. We're going to blow up. We're going to get to the top. You say all that and you back it up.
Yeah. That's
So
true.
the problem with affirmations is people are like, I'm going to be wealthy. So it's like the universe or the world or whoever turns into Hulk Hogan and says, okay, and
Hmm.
what after that?
Yeah. Yeah.
But you say, oh, I'm going to be rich. Oh, great. I'm going to be thirsty. You know what I'm saying? It's like, what do you know? Oh, I'm going to be this. What do you do after what you say it? You know, you saw the difference because you didn't believe it when you're like, oh, I am courageous, this and that, because you didn't feel it in that moment.
Yeah.
But when it came to that fire in you about this podcast is my life. This
Yeah.
podcast is what I do. I
Mhm.
eat, I eat people's breakfast on these other podcasts. So your brain said, I believe it. I believe it. This is
Yeah.
going to be. It's just like me with mindset. People are like, oh, this and that. How do you, that's fine. People say the best mindset. Okay, all right. Let's let's have a mindset contest. I
Mindset.
know, I know who I am because I know what I
Yeah.
invest. I know what level, and I say that humbly. I don't need to look.
Yeah.
God approves me. I don't need to be approved by anybody else. I'm not looking for hand claps and approval. This is my life. This is why I'm here. Nobody will beat me
Yeah.
because I check myself. That's why I'm not speaking like, oh, I'm a doctor and I can't put on a band-aid. I willfully put myself in a car and didn't quit on my dream. For 2 years I sacrificed it all. I sacrificed food money and ate peanut butter all week to buy self-help books at thrift stores.
Wow.
You know, and in fact, the thrift store that I sacrificed, what I would do is I had $35 a week for food. That's not a lot. And when you don't have a refrigerator, you don't have a microwave, what are you going to eat? So I bought a peanut butter jar and a loaf of bread for about $7, which left me with about $24. I took that $24 and I would go to the thrift stores that sold dime book day, dollar books, and whatever I couldn't get at the library, I would invest in self help because I had to pay for my education. I sacrificed my food that goes in my mouth to put wisdom in my brain. Come beat me. Come try me at mindset. Same way with you. I went against all these people that said I couldn't do it. I DM'd and got all these guests. I put in time with all these interviews, did all this production, have not quit, did not get rewarded, still do it. Come beat me on the podcast. You believe it. And you have every right to, and you need to. That's when affirmations work.
Hmm. And I am, well, the only thing that came to my mind is I'm clipping I'm getting that edit because that was powerful, Jeff, of you, with that peanut butter and um shit. I hope that inspires someone who's going through that and grinding to know that, hey, it it will become better. Just keep grinding, do your thing, and it will all work out. That was a very strong clip. And I'll also say this: I don't actually listen to my podcast. I don't know if that's a surprise to anyone, but I will be going to Virginia to visit my parents for this July 4th. I will have this podcast run it. Well, it'll be up on Spotify then, so make sure you guys listen to it. But I will be re-listening to this because there are some very valuable points. This has been a very strong episode. And you mentioned some of those books. Um, if you were to recommend just three books that you would recommend to someone to strengthen their mindset, what would they be?
Relentless by Tim Grover, Winning by Tim Grover, any Jim Rohn book he ever wrote. Those three.
Yeah.
Those three. Grover, because he earned his spot with Jordan, with Brady, with all the people. Grover's real life. Jim Rohn, because he really turned his life around and he was the one that taught all these people all
Yeah.
this personal development that they borrow and claim that they did. So really those two are and there's countless. I've read hundreds of books, but those are the best, that I would go with.
Now, Jeff, where can we find kind of your content? Are you open for coaching? What's that process looking like? How does that all work?
Yeah, definitely. You can find me at Jeff Opus on all platforms: LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. And what it is, I do customized coaching. Now people say, what's customized coaching? Everybody thinks, oh, motivation, motivation. People don't need motivation. I didn't need motivation. I didn't
Yeah.
need motivation. I went and jumped out, went in a car. But what I need is I got to take my foot out of my butt. Okay. So I have to know when to downshift, when to upshift. So customized coaching is I see exactly how you're wired. We work together. We build a plan exactly for you. We don't sit around and cry about stuff. The difference between coaching is therapy. Coaching and therapy is therapy goes in the past. Mindset coaching, we lay everything out on the table, we deal with it, we move forward, we fix it, and we continue to dominate.
I like that. I never thought about that in that essence. But first 3 people to sign up for Jeff's coaching. Send me a screenshot of you getting that. We'll get you something special out, maybe an autograph from one of the guests we've had, because this episode has been very powerful. And Jeff, you're truly meant to be where you are. I truly say that, and my mindset has definitely shifted with what we've talked about. Um, it's been a great episode. Now, I guess my final question for you is, what is your biggest tip for someone who's looking to become a mindset coach like you once were?
Well, first off, thank you for having me on here. I
Yep.
love your show, and thank you for, everything that you bring. Thank you
Yep.
for also being an inspiration to me because I've watched you for years grind and push, and I respect what you do. And anybody that wants to be a mindset coach, pay for it. Pay
Mm.
for it in your self education. There's
Yeah.
so much stuff out here to get certified for 3 hours for $25. What are you going to learn about mindset coaching in 3 hours and how to lose $25?
Yeah.
This